Welcome, everybody, to This Week in Svelte. My name is Enrico, and joining me we have, who's it going to be? Paolo!
Hey, it's me. It's time for a celebration thanks to Sonoma.
Well, good day, morning, afternoon, late evening, early morning to all of you, and thanks for joining us. Well, we have an agenda as usual. We're going to talk about the changelog, quick facts and announcements. We have a special community showcase. Not really any discussions, however, one question and maybe one answer. So let's go. Why wait? Starting with the changelog.
Enrico, maybe I have a why wait because I don't think I see the live stream on YouTube. I don't know if.
Oh, it's definitely live.
Okay.
It's
Well, I mean,
definitely
it's
live.
fine. I wanted to share, but
Hello, Fabian. Thanks for waving.
hi, Fabian.
So let's go. The first changelog item is 3 hours ago, Svelte 4.2.3, in which we have an improved warning for ally click events have key events message. Sometimes they don't get it right, but the bug fixes are always welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And below that, we have more robust hydration of HTML tag. So this is referring to the @HTML Svelte tag. For some reason, there were edge cases with it not hydrating correctly after server rendering, but this bug fix has you covered.
And also, like, I'm very eager tomorrow because you will announce it in a few seconds, but I'm very eager because there will be a talk about Ali warnings tomorrow.
Oh, and maybe some talks about hydration and enhancements. But you'll see. You'll all see. Another
Yeah.
changelog item, SvelteKit 1.27.4. There's an interesting case where if you have a shadow endpoint, which means you have a route with a page, but also in that route you have an endpoint, the so-called shadow endpoint. If you have SSR disabled but pre-rendering enabled, the shadow endpoint wouldn't pre-render, but now it does. So you can expect an __ data.json to appear when pre-rendering shadow endpoints in this version.
Very
And then
cool.
there's a cleanup chore. Don't worry about it.
I mean, it's just a chore. And also, like, I want to do a big shout out to pre-rendering because I love pre-rendering. Like, whenever I can, if I can pre-render, I love pre-render. I mean, you can host your SvelteKit website on a CDN, and it's just so cool.
Put your hands up in the chat if you like and enjoy pre-rendering. That is it for the changelog. Moving on to quick facts and announcements. First quick fact is, did you know jsconfig.json and tsconfig.json in SvelteKit projects, they're automatically generated, but you need to be very cautious when changing your jsconfig.json because SvelteKit provides a tsconfig that is extended in your root application, some of which can be overridden, some of which have drastic breaking things. Let's talk about that. I'm talking about the includes key value pair. So take a look at this. So for example, in the SvelteKit project, the hidden folder or the get ignored folder .svelte-kit will include this already generated. So as you run your dev server or build your application or install dependencies, you'll get all of the niceties of automatic types. And that's because if you inspect your hidden folder .SvelteKit, there's this include pair. Include will allow TypeScript to traverse all of the folders in your project so that aliases work, autocomplete works, auto import works. If you override this in your respective JS or TS config, then all of that automatic importing aliasing will break. So just be careful. I ran into this. Others have ran into this. Just watch out.
Yeah. I mean, I also remember, I mean, maybe they removed it, but I also distinctively remember that for some time when you create a new project for with SvelteKit, it literally say inside your TS config, don't override include and exclude. If you want to override them, go copy from the hidden file And this is also a solution. Like you can literally go to the SvelteKit tsconfig, copy over the include, and then override, add the things that you need, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. Just be cautious because those in particular don't merge nicely. They override completely. We have a comment here. Modify tsconfig with the svelte.config.js option instead of editing the JSON. That is what I was looking for. Let's look that up. kit.svelte.dev. So apparently, this is configurable. Function that allows you to edit the generated tsconfig. Wow.
Wow. I did not know about this.
Okay, so this is located under probably kit.typescript. I got to double check by scrolling all the way up how deep we are. But the good news is it's configurable, so that's great. The next announcement is tomorrow, Svelte Summit is happening.
Ooh, celebration. Confetti.
Oh, they said they shared the link in YouTube chat. For some reason, didn't show up on our end. But
Yeah.
we'll be sure to post that in the YouTube description below for the config settings. Svelte Summit is tomorrow. It starts at 3 p.m. Central European time zone. So it's like for me, 9 a.m. Eastern time, and for you, maybe a different time. For some others, 1 a.m. I think in Australia. It's
I mean, it's always like when you have a global event, it's always difficult to find like the right time. I think Vit did it right because like they basically run a 24-hour conference. It's pre-recorded, so it's not that big of a deal. Poor Kevin and Brittany, like they need to stand up. So I mean, it's good that Svelte Summit only lasts 6 hours. Good for them. But I mean, yeah, but it's recorded. You can see it later.
It's free. Have a look. Special thanks to Kevin and Brittany for hosting and marathoning 6 hours. Check out all the cool talks coming from great speakers. And see you tomorrow. That is it for quick facts and announcements. Now let's move on to Community Showcase.
Ooh.
Please give a warm welcome to our guest speaker, Tom.
Hello.
Hey, Tom.
How are you doing? Good to be here.
Yeah, we are doing great. I mean, I want to give an incredible shout out to Tom because it's 3 a.m. where he is, and he basically woke up just to speak with us. So, clap your hands
for living.
Clap your
living
hand
on the other side of the world. Yeah.
At which hour you will see Svelte Summit? Like, I think for you will be.
It will middle of the night sometime.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's okay. You're used to it over here. Nothing exciting happens during Australian day hours, so definitely used to it. But thank you for having me. Should I share?
Yeah, absolutely. Please go ahead.
Right. So, here we go. I want to talk about. So I've just been working on a new library recently, and Paolo was kind enough to ask if I wanted to talk about what I'm doing. So the library is called CanIKit, so you can see it up on GitHub here. And CanIKit it's an authorization library. So it deals with, can somebody do something to something in SvelteKit? It's very, very, very heavily inspired by Pundit, which is an authorization library for Ruby on Rails. But there are other similar libraries and a variety of other frameworks as well, which do a similar thing. The main kind of idea behind CanIKit is that once it's all set up, that you should really isolate all of your authorization code in your application. So it tries to avoid having your important authorization logic. So, this user can only do this if they're an admin, or this unit can only see this post if they're the owner of the post, that type of logic, and separates it out from your routing logic of like fetching from the database or pulling out of the session or doing the different routing logic that you might have. And the second thing that it does is forces you to have authorization logic. So it works in a similar way too. So I have the SvelteKit library here. And the first thing that it does is it only protects routes that have a server component to it. So it might be that it's an API route. So like you have a .server API route, or it might be that it's a page underneath a layout that has a layout.server, or it's a page that has a page.server. So you can see this is the home page here, and in our directory that's up here. So we don't have any server components here, so it doesn't do anything. When we jump into the Svelte page, we get a 500 error because our Svelte has a page.server.ts, but it doesn't have a corresponding policy file. And the policy file is where we put all of the logic about whether or not we're allowed to see the thing. So when you first add CanIKit to your app, it's going to give you a lot of errors because you're going to need to go and add policies to all of the routes that have server components in them. I'm probably going to add a lax mode soon, which will just be a flag that you can flip on that says, don't error, just put out a warning if we don't authorize the route. But then we can have a look at one in action. So this is the about endpoint here, and I've added a server component to it. And you can see now that I have a page.policy.ts. So this is our authorization logic. And in this case, it's very, very simple. It's if we have a user that has the admin flag on it, they're allowed, if they don't have the admin, return false, otherwise return true. So it's only going to allow admin users to access this route. And then in our load function, we can see that inside the locals, we get access to the CanI method. And then you pass the user into the CanI method, which then goes and calls this route. So if we forget to call it, it says, CanI not called for this route, so it'll fail again because we maybe forgot to add our authorization logic. But we add it back, it's permission denied. But if we flip it, and obviously this is just mocked out, but if we flip it to an admin, then the policy will pass and we can view the page. This policy doesn't have a resource in it, but you can also expand it to do something like resource, and you might pass in a to-do item or a post or a blog or whatever it might be. And then inside the corresponding policy, you get access to resource as well. And you can check, okay, does the post's user ID equal the current user's ID? And we only allow you to view the page if it does. So that's a brief overview. It gets more complicated than that because you can add obviously layouts. And so for a particular route, it will actually call the layout policy and the server policy if you're doing a layout logic, like server layout.server, as well as page.server as well. It'll call both. And if you have many layouts, it'll call every one of those policies. You might have a parent layout that says the user's logged in, and then each policy under that, you can be more specific to the routing that you're dealing with. So yeah, that's a very brief overview. CanIKit, I've only just launched it, so it's in its reasonably early stages, but I think it solves, I hope, an important problem of really making you think about authorization at every step in your app. And it will vary depending on the app. If you're building something that deals with very secure, sensitive data, like you want to be thinking about authorization every single time you hit the back end. So it forces you to do that. That's about all I have on that.
Great. Thank you so much for presenting today.
Very, very
Thank
cool.
you very much.
I think it's a nice idea, the fact that you need it's secure by default. Like you need to really think about accessibility. You need to think about accessibility, but you also need to think about authorization. I like it. One question that I have, and I mean, this is more a curiosity because I've seen that like you are basically required to use import.meta.glob as a user. Have you tried to use it on the library side? It's not something that I ever tried. Basically, like you just like import.meta.glob all the things that you need inside your library.
Oh yeah. So it actually is a very good question. If someone in the community knows how to do that. So what you're talking about in the hooks file, I get everyone to pass in the specific files. Yeah, I haven't worked out a way to reference the parent repository from within the library at runtime.
Okay.
And so that means that I need those files passed in at initialization so that then I can work out where and when you need to call the routing. So if someone knows how to do that, please let me know. The flip side is it's also more powerful as well. If you have I would always like to fall back on that and allow people to pass those in, because maybe they have different things within their library that I'm not expecting, but they can update those imports, those dynamic imports to make it work. But by default, it would be nice to just have I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about using frameworks is that you have conventions, and then you can often rely on those conventions in the library. So, if someone knows how to do that, let me know.
I think you can actually try to do something with a Vite plugin, but I mean, I am not 100% sure. So, I mean, I will I will probably take a look. I mean, I always enjoy try to make things like this work.
PRs are always open, so absolutely.
And also
but yes, it's a good call out.
Another interesting thing, I think I have seen that you are using classes, which is something that, I mean, it's a bit controversial to this day, but I think they are making a comeback.
I know, and if it's not obvious, I'm a Ruby guy by so guilty of that. I think that you could very easily do it. Could just have the policies could just export individual functions. So one thing that I didn't mention was that for each policy, it will, like, the functions that you're asking are whether or not you can view, create, update, or delete, and that is automatically routed based on whether it's a post request, put request,
that's cool,
or a delete request as well. But you can also override those and provide custom actions too. So, like, can I publish a post, for instance? You can do too. So, so you could very easily just have export functions there instead of the classes. And I probably should do that, given the people, the JavaScript community, not as loving classes generally as my Ruby background is.
I mean, I think they are coming back.
Naya does not agree with you, but that's okay. Perfect.
Well, they may age really well anyways. Thanks again, Tom, for presenting. And we're ready to move on.
Cheers.
Yeah, that was interesting to me as well, because I actually have an authorization DAO, which is also a class in my work SvelteKit application to do authorizations based on the method verb. But the disadvantage is I need to use URL matchers for protected routes and unprotected routes. So it's very like overly configurable. Maybe something easier would be nice, but we'll see in the future. But for now, we're moving on to questions and answers. And the one question I will try to help answer today is, how do I close a modal using a background click? By background, I'm referring to the background shade. Take a look at this. So this is a modal demonstration, and I will address the accessibility warnings as well. But the point here is when you build a modal and you have to show it up on the page like this, sometimes you want the user to be allowed to click on the background, and that works. You can close the modal by clicking on cancel, clicking on I want pizza, or clicking on the background. And the way to do this is you provide a div that's adjacent or a sibling to your modal div, and that works, but you get an accessibility warning because on click should not be applied to non-button role elements. And this may sound controversial, but this is okay, and I'll tell you why. I'm able to open the modal with tab and enter. I'm able to close the modal with escape. I'm also able to close the modal using the close buttons provided in the modal, whether it's a close button on the top right or a cancel button within. Because I've adequately covered the keyboard user and the screen reader user, it's okay if the background close via pointer click or pointer down works only for those users because the other users are supported as well. So in this narrow case, you're allowed to ignore the warnings. Alternatively, you can use pointer down as your listener and the warnings go away. That's not to say the warnings are inadequate, it's just that they don't cover that use case. You can also use a Svelte action. You can do like use click outside, and those are not detected by the linter either. But I'm not here to teach you how to circumvent the linter. I'm just trying to explain that this allows you to close the modal as long as you've also provided those other cases. Another feature in this demo is inert is being used on sibling elements. So when the open variable is set to true, all sibling elements on the page are inert, and this enables focus trapping. It allows you to open the modal, and as you press tab, you cannot go to the links or buttons on the background page, and that's good design. So inert helps you achieve that. Or you can use dialog. So in this improved example, we're using the built-in HTML dialog element. And with that, you can open your modal, you can cancel it, you can press escape. It gives you a lot of niceties for free. I don't have to write logic for the escape key. I don't have to write logic for closing it. And I don't have to write logic for making the background and sibling elements inert. But by default, the dialog element won't let you click on the background. So to fix that problem, I have an action here on line 31, use outclick. And outclick is a small action that will detect when the clicked target equals the node it is applied to. And built-in HTML dialog elements that, like here I have like a dark black background, that's because I'm using CSS to target the backdrop. Notice the pseudo selector here. The dialog element provides a backdrop, and this is how I make it dark black with a little bit of transparency. But because I'm clicking on the background and I'm not clicking on this, and that's thanks to this matcher I have on line 16, I'm making sure the node I applied the action to is equal to what I'm actually clicking on. Clicking on this won't close it. Clicking on the background will close it. And hopefully that answers your questions.
That's very, very cool. Also, like, I mean, while you were showing the other example, I was thinking, wait, didn't the dialogue already set inert to everything? And like, then I realized that you were not using the dialogue element. But yeah, I mean, use the dialogue element. And one interesting bit of information is that one thing that I don't properly like about the dialogue element is that you can't open a proper dialogue without JavaScript. Like, it would be cool because you can have the open attribute on a dialogue, but that will not make that a proper dialogue. So you don't get the inert, you don't get the, it's just basically in the DOM. It's not a real dialogue. And so right now, if you want to open a dialogue, you have to use the JavaScript, which is not very cool for progressive enhancement. Yeah, exactly. You have to click, you have to call show dialog or show modal. I mean, no, sorry. You have to call dialog.show or dialog.show modal. But I learned that there are like thinking of providing a new way to open a modal. Like you can add an attribute on a button that will open the modal even without JavaScript. And I can't wait to have this in HTML.
Absolutely. Once we get the popover API, and I guess what Paolo was describing was you can have modals load inline in the page and it doesn't make the rest of the page inert. I'm using show modal, which is a function that's provided by the dialog element, which makes it cause the rest of the page to be inert. And I have a good clarification question by Antonio. Does the action also work for elements nested in the dialog? Yes, and I'll show you my workaround to that. So down here, the reason why this action works is because when I click on the background behind it, that is the dialog element rendered in the DOM. But in here on line 36, I have this div that's inner dialog, and that's everything with the red border, with the content inside, because I'm clicking on that div, it will not match the node. That's why this match on line 16 does work, because the node is the dialog, which is behind the inner div. This is sort of a hack I put in place. That way I can click inside here, engage with it. It doesn't close unexpectedly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the only problem that I see with this is that if you try to add padding or border to the dialogue, you are screwed. But I mean, you can work around this.
Yeah, that's what I did here. So the inner dialog class does apply my border and padding, and I try to keep the dialog as plain as possible. That way, the styling I want is where it needs to be, and the out click works as expected. Another tidbit for everyone is if you want to confirm a user action, such as a destructive action, you should avoid letting them escape by clicking outside, because you want the confirm dialog to be in your face and taking control of your page to actually confirm a destructive action. But in the case of like an informational modal or something that isn't destructive, then the out click interaction is suitable.
And also another small bit of information. I remember when I created an action very similar to this, and I remember like my solution was to use I think there is a method that's called inside, so you can do node.inside or something like this, so that you can check if you are clicking on something that is inside a node.
Curious too. Yeah, I know that the HTML element is the node that we're using in Svelte.
Yes.
That is this one. And yeah, there could be a method here that I'm not familiar with. I don't see
Okay,
inside.
Maybe it's not inside.
Contains.
Yeah, probably something. I have to. And also, I think instance methods you have to check on non-instance properties.
All right. Okay, I'm a bit off. I'm off the deep end here, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
there's alternatives there.
Let's not go to the rabbit hole.
Yeah, but it's great because Svelte actions are so convenient because the first attribute provided is the node. Of course, you can add your own secondary attributes, but the node is what's so helpful about it. And yeah, we all love progressive enhancement. Maybe tomorrow at Svelte Summit, I'll learn more about progressive enhancements too.
I don't know if you learn more. Maybe you you will confirm what you already know.
Contains. We had another YouTube comment for contains. It's a node prototype. Okay, not HTML element.
Yeah, because exactly like the action is actually taking a node and not an HTML element, even though I don't think you can actually use it on a node.
Right. Contains method. Yeah, you can see if it contains another node. I'm going with old school jQuery-esque event.target.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, everybody. That was questions and answers. And that's the end of today's show. So stay comfortable, stay warm, and please be sure to tune in tomorrow at the Svelte Summit.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be a lot of very interesting talk. And I'm sure you don't want to miss out, right?
Right? I hope to see you there. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.